time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Gym. Josh here with fearless leader Dusty Holden.
Hey, man.
Welcome, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. Really good. I
Looking
figured
good.
this.
Got the tan, man. You still getting that 15 minutes of...
Dude, that was the goal, man. We talked about that, and like that has always been one of my downfalls, as it were, to just try to sit there and not do anything. Is that impossible? I know it's hard for you. I know you get all of your sun because you're outside coaching, doing all the things.
Yeah, but it's sometimes it's like it's one of those things that I feel like you have to be at least aware that you need sunlight because you don't realize how much time that you are indoors.
Well, when you're in the gym all the time, you never really pay attention to that.
And then, but I noticed like the energy that you feel, like how much more energy you feel when you get outside and you get some sunlight.
That's 100%. That was why I tested it. I was wondering, like, would the midday sun, because the morning sun is sort of like an impossibility. Like, as you know, the prime time to coach is dark, and then you've missed the sunrise no matter what, and that's okay. But the middle of the day tends to have a little bit of a lull if you're coaching. Yeah. So that was the experiment, was to spend at least 4 20-minute sessions in the middle of the day. And I think that the first 2 minutes is profound. Yeah. Because it's like that breath, like you actually are intentionally taking breath work. And it does do the things, man.
So you just walk, or you?
I just sit there.
Read?
I just sit there and try to breathe. It's like, if I'm going to try to get sun, I'm going to try to do breath work, and I try to take that 20 minutes and do breath work.
That's nice, man.
And it's interesting because that first 2 minutes, like I said, it's like a whole different ballgame. So I like it. Yeah, but it's kind of like one of those things. Like here's what I don't get. I like it, and then it's going to get cold out, and then I'm not going to be able to do it. So what happens then? And it irritates me that I like it. It's kind of like finding or cooking, and you get real fancy with your cooking. Yeah. And it takes a long time, and you're like, yeah, this is great, but I got to do this every time. Yeah. Or I got to have this every time now. Yeah. So that's where I'm a little bit like, what happens in the wintertime when it gets super cold? Yeah. But we're not talking about tans. We're not talking about tans today. We're talking about you.
All right.
Fitness journey. So here's what I want to talk about. You and I have talked about this many times, and your fitness journey is profound, and it's always and forever, meaning pretty much when you started, you've just been doing it. So I wanted you to kind of walk us through what made you start into fitness and why. I'm assuming like sports and so on and so forth, and then how that progressed, and then just give me some milestones and mainly the pitfalls. You know, what did you do when you were 25 that you loved, and then what did you do at 30 that you were like, this was stupid? Yeah. Stuff like that.
Well, I think sports is definitely how I found it. And it was fairly easy then because I had a goal. I wanted to be better at my sport. Yeah. So training became something that was like necessary to try to unlock my potential.
And the sport was?
Baseball.
Baseball, okay.
So, you know, I never really thought about it too much because I was training for sport. But then early in my 20s, that ended. So
you were playing high school ball.
Yep, into college.
Into college ball. Yep. And are you at this point in time, are you doing it on your own, or is this a forced thing that you're just kind of enjoying, but it's still forced?
We started doing like organized like workouts and I would say structured training in like high school.
Okay.
Near the end of my high school, like junior, senior year. But then in college, it became a little bit more structured and organized. So
how many times a week would you train when you were in college?
Like I would say 2 to 3.
And this was forced, right?
Yes.
You had to do this to play?
Yes.
Okay. And did you add anything else personally?
I did, but it wasn't in the form of like strength training or anything in the gym. I would run.
Okay. Yep.
So that's, you know, you only know what you know.
I was going to say,
and back then it was like, well,
running's fitness.
I want to be conditioned, so you run.
Fitness, yep.
And you run long distances, short distances, and everything in between.
Well, at least you were doing, polarization.
Yeah.
You were doing both sides of the coin, so that's great.
Yeah. So, you know, it was fairly easy during the time that I was playing, and then after I finished playing, that's where it became challenging because I'd kind of lost my the why.
Yeah.
And I was also trying to figure out exactly where I was going to go, even in life.
So how old were you at this time?
That was about 22.
Did your training hit? Did you stop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
How long did you take a break for?
Up until I was about probably 25.
Okay.
So there's about a 3-year window in there where I didn't really do much.
Okay.
Played some basketball, just activity stuff, but nothing like
not a formal training program.
No.
Okay. Do you remember that? Do you remember like, man, I did feel like something was missing, or were you still in that state where it's like you could have been just pummeled every day and not really pay attention because you were young and do whatever you want?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. Like I definitely, looking back on it, I remember that there was like something missing. Yeah. I didn't know exactly what it was at that time.
If you like today, if you were thinking of that, is that one of those circumstances where it's like, easiest way to say it might be like, I'm planning for a marathon.
Yeah.
So you're doing all the training, you're super hyped up, but you didn't plan for anything after the marathon?
Exactly. Yeah, I think, again, it's like I had a goal, I had a reason why I was doing the training, and so that was my motivation. That's what got me into the gym on the days that I didn't really feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And then when that was gone, I didn't know why I should train or, have a big reason for doing it. And I was young enough to where it's like you said,
you
I felt good.
Yeah, you can get away with some stuff.
Yeah. And
when does that change? When can you not get away with things anymore? What do you think?
I feel like mid-30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and it's not like drastic. I think it becomes more noticeable as you get into like your 40s. But mid-30s, you start to realize that I think there's certain things that are a little bit more challenging than they used to be.
You, from playing sports.
Yeah.
I mean, sports is waiting to get injured, and we're not saying that as a bad way, but the cost of being awesome is generally something that you pay with your body, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like people are really scared of that, but sport has risk, and
especially high level.
And it should really. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Now, if you're bulletproofing the body with training, then you're less available to that risk. So we have that, right? But when did you feel like the chance of injury could have gone up, but not because of the sport? Maybe because you weren't doing as much, or because you were starting to work out and you would notice, like, if I didn't do the things right, I would be injured. But do you remember a time where you were like, oh, I'll tell you when mine was. I was 29.
Yeah.
Where I started noticing, like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. In fact, I feel like I've gotten better.
Yeah.
Objectively, and it was like, but then I'd feel like my knees were getting hot, and I'm like, what's going on? Mm-hmm. So it was about 29 where I started to really have to pay attention.
Yeah, I would say around that 30 range for me. And the biggest thing that I noticed first was more on the recovery side. You just didn't bounce back the way that you did when you were younger.
Truth.
So it wasn't necessarily a performance metric that was like dropping. It was just more of, the recovery and the bounce back. It didn't seem to be. There would be flashes of it, but it's like that consistency of it didn't matter like what you really did. You kind of
might actually have to take a deload here and there.
You might really need to spend some time like mobilizing and doing some self-care. So
do you think, though, before we push past that, do you think that you could have interrupted that with a little bit of prehab or starting off into some of that maintenance and mobility work a little early? So do you think that lack of recovery could have been like, man, I didn't think of that till after the fact. If I'd have set it up beforehand, could you have went further longer, or maybe not?
Well, and I think one thing that you said just a minute ago, that when I was training, especially in sport, we were training for one thing and one thing only, and that was performance. We weren't training for resilience.
And a pretty specific performance by that time. I mean, you're playing college ball, that's a whole different ballgame. So your GPP
and
is pretty much
you got to think back too, man. Like, this is around the time when the Nebraska Cornhuskers were like becoming really like well known in football, and that, I don't know if you remember that whole strength protocol, but even Shreveport, the famous strength program.
Yep.
So you've had some pretty big breakthroughs that were kind of starting to like happen in that early like late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, and you're even talking about baseball, and to my recollection, like we didn't really have as much baseball training in the early 90s. It was kind of like, do you really do that? Is that kind of like certain guys were?
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh, that's weird.
Yep.
It was more like the weight room was a football, definitely not a basketball. And we've definitely, I don't know if full circle is the right term, but that's come a long way.
And the other thing was nobody was training in season. You know, it's like you trained off season,
that's right, yeah.
but not in season.
Because not only did we not want to hurt you, but we didn't want to confuse everything with practice and so on and so forth.
So just even the information that was available, I mean, we're talking like almost pre-internet, you know. That's hard to believe.
Archaic days back then.
I mean, you know, early 2000s, it's like the information, I remember reading books, you know, to try to find out information on like training programs and you know, you're walking into the gym with these like sheets of paper that
wow.
you've thumbed through to try to get your programs, and you're writing all your percentages down.
Now at Armor, we do have some whiteboards that are out there that either
we do.
Sometimes
we try to hang on to them.
Sometimes they have motivational phrases that somebody leaves. Sometimes they
got
have
a
some workouts on there.
Yeah.
But the last time I saw a piece of paper on the workout floor, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about that.
I think that's the difference in where things were and how far they've came.
Now, when you are 24, 25, you start to get back into your own training. Nobody's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
You transition into your own stuff. And what does that start to look like for your first real, I'm going to create a workout? Or did you have somebody create the workout for you?
No, I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing.
I don't think it really was
back then.
To be honest,
you know,
I mean, you had coaches, but not
had
as much.
a few buddies, and we typically went into the gym and we picked a muscle group and we worked the heck out of it.
What did you like most about that time, and what would you have changed about that time of starting fitness on your own after having come from a background of being fit?
Well, I don't think I understood anything about movement, how the body moves. You know, it was very machine based.
Okay.
And so, not that there's anything wrong with it, but not even really knowing how to correctly move my body, and then you're hopping on whatever type of machine that there's a little diagram on that shows you this is the muscle group that this machine's designed to
Again, nothing
target.
wrong with that.
Exactly, nothing wrong with it. But
in fact, I would say do that.
Yeah,
If you don't know the other thing, don't do the other thing.
It was a great way to learn because again, you didn't have all the information that we have access to now. So,
well, that's what we talk about in coaching. Like, if you have the coach standing in front of you that is uncomfortable with teaching a snatch, don't teach the snatch.
Yeah.
Like, if you're uncomfortable about it, don't play that game. Teach what you know. And the same thing goes for the athlete. Like, if you're not comfortable with doing the movement, don't just force that. Learn the other basics leading up to that.
Yeah. So that kind of soon after that, probably around 28, somewhere in between 28 and 30, is when I started messing around with doing CrossFit. And so one of the things that
How did you find CrossFit?
caught my attention, at that time now the internet is really taken off.
It's a thing. Yeah.
There's CrossFit.com. Just people, friends, buddies in the gym.
Yep.
Guys that I played ball with, a few of them were doing some CrossFit workouts. Hey, go to this website. There's a workout on there every day. It's different. And
did you start out doing .com workouts?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Nice. Did you ever post anything to the message board?
I may have a few times, but not
in the comments. Okay.
But you know what you did was you looked to kind of see like, where do I compare?
That was when like blogs were a thing and people commented on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So, and really, I think what kind of was interesting about CrossFit was it was just a lot of things that I'd never done before.
Yeah.
Tons of new movements that were crazy hard, and the athlete in me, that like sparked something that it challenged me in a new way, because I would think, I can do this, and then I would try to do it and I'd be like, holy cow, like this is really hard. There's technique involved, and so you would start to try to learn how to do a handstand push-up or a muscle up, and again, information, it was starting to become available, but you're really like, it was a lot of self-taught, like,
oh yeah,
You're trying to watch videos.
But the videos at that time were still sparse.
They were.
Yes, 100%.
And so information again was not like there wasn't a ton of it. So
speaking to somebody like yourself though, an athlete, it was, and this may work for folks who do not have an athletic past. It was really the challenge that drew you. It wasn't like, let's start on the easiest thing possible.
No,
it was like, man, I saw something that was hard, and I wanted to get better at it.
It was the fact that, like, I remember snatching, and thinking, seeing like some girls on the internet, like, snatching 95 pounds. And I mean, me just throwing that on, thinking like, okay, I'll be able to snatch 95, and like, I like could not do it. Yeah,
eye opening. Yes.
And so, like there was this like reality to it that like I'm an athlete and I can't do this, and there's something about that like fired me up and made me want to look at that. Yeah. Made me want to learn more about it.
Is that like a time where, when this leads to your coaching, because there's a part of coaching that's seeing what the athlete in front of you needs.
Yeah.
Is that where you're kind of like, this is somebody that definitely needs the challenge to keep going, whereas this one really needs just like the door to open and let them feel like they're doing activity? Do more people need to look for the challenge, but they're starting a little too, I don't want to say beginner, you still start with the basics, but you can make basics really hard. Is that what some people are missing out on, is that they're not pushing enough of their potential?
I think 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Don't shy away from the challenge,
Yeah.
And I think you have to like check in with yourself and to see why do I not want to do this? Is it a fear of injury?
Yeah.
Or is it just fear of like the failure, of embarrassment of not being able to do it? And
there's a healthy caution, that an unhealthy fear, and then there's a healthy caution.
Yeah.
So this may be a time where, again, a coach or somebody that you
just
trust
can help you, like, think
which
through
one's
it.
which.
Yeah.
It is right to be scared of this thing.
Sure.
It is not okay to be scared of this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you started CrossFit, how long was it? And this is a little different than just the fitness journey, but you obviously opened a CrossFit affiliate, CrossFit Rima.
Yeah.
When did that happen versus when you stumbled upon CrossFit?
It's probably like 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years.
You did CrossFit on your own?
Yeah, and this was like, at that point, at least around here, there weren't any gyms. It was before people were opening gyms. The Rush Fitness.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Buddy's Garage.
Oh, cool.
Because that's kind of what it morphed into.
Sure.
As we started getting deeper into it, we didn't have access to certain things there at the gym that we needed, and so we just started getting the stuff and accumulating it in somebody's gym or in their garage, and that's what we started doing.
Now, how many days a week, when you started to get into CrossFit, did you start to train?
2 to 3, but then that quickly turned into like 5,
Just
6.
as many times as you could get in there and do it. Now, going back, what would you have changed about entering CrossFit? Or what did you like the best? How about both? Give me, what did you like the most, and then what would you have changed?
I think the only thing I would have changed about doing it is maybe been more patient of like the longevity of it being something that like the relationship that I have with it now is one of like, I just enjoy it and I want to do it for a long time. I think back then it was more about I wanted results and I wanted them as fast as I could get them, and you kind of get on this train with CrossFit because the results come, I mean, I think that's what gets people so, into it, and it almost is addictive, especially if you have that personality that, you get the results, you just want more and more. And so,
but that's also where people get hurt.
It is. I mean, and burn out,
But that's not a program fault.
No,
CrossFit is flawless in its methodology. It's the ego, generally speaking, of the athlete.
100%.
And like you said, it feels really good to do some, so it must feel really good to go hard and do more, and that's not forever and always the case.
No, and you should run yourself into the ground.
Yes, 100%. And you see that often in
CrossFit.
CrossFit.
So I think just patience,
again, it doesn't make CrossFit bad.
No.
I think it's great.
But I think you can do that with any
100%.
Name it and you can do it with it. So
I think it's the fact that CrossFit is fun at the same time that lends itself more to that, because it's harder to step away from the fun of it. You're like to pull back at all means to pull back a little bit from the people that you're surrounded with, and that's slightly annoying. So you keep pushing into that. So it's like the thing that makes it awesome is also the thing that lets it tip over into too much.
100%.
Yeah. Now you're doing that for how many? You said about 4 years before you open a box.
Yep.
And does your training changes when you open a business? Obviously, that has to adjust a little bit.
So I'll back up and. You know what? The reason that I decided to do a CrossFit, I wanted to open a gym. I was looking at a lot of different gym models, and then obviously was personally doing CrossFit. Started to realize that people are opening gyms that are just doing CrossFit, and then seeing that like you're doing these things together. Like people are doing these in large groups, not like 2 or 3 guys together, but like 15 or 20 people. And I was like, now that's crazy. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's when I decided, like, this is what I want to do. I love the idea of a community of people.
Yeah.
And so, decided that this is the model, and this is the type of gym that I want to open. And that was like 2012.
2012.
So we got it open. Yeah, we got it open in 2013.
2013, Knoxville. Okay.
Yep.
Now, you do that, and then what happens, obviously, again, business and life. At some point in time, we start to have the kids start showing up.
Well, yeah, so at that point, I didn't have any kids, and then about a year into it, the kids were born, and I have twins.
Twins were born, yep.
And in the beginning, my training didn't change too much because it was taking time to build the business.
Especially then because people don't know as much about it. So they're like, what's going on? You want us to flip tires and do things that's weird?
And to be honest, man, like you could almost just like, at that point in time, if you found a empty building and you wanted to throw some barbells and bumper plates in it, and not, back then there weren't even bikes, but a few rowers and a rig, it's like, voila. You have a CrossFit gym, and you could probably get some people like to come in.
Do you think it's like that today?
No. It's drastically changed, and I would say that's somewhere around like 3 to 4 years in is when I realized that, this is it's a job, like this is a job, and if I want this thing to be successful and be something, like it's going to take a greater level of commitment from me, and so. Like, when I started out, I was like, I'll train every day at noon, and, I just had this whole, regimen of how I saw it going down. And I could have continued to have done that, train for 2 hours at the expense of like the business.
Yeah.
And so I kind of came to a crossroad of whether I wanted to be, fit.
Yep.
Or if I wanted to be a coach and a business owner, and not that you can't do both, but you're going to have to, there's going to have to be some like give and take there.
Oh, 100%.
And it definitely had to come from, because you own a gym or you work in a gym, it doesn't mean that you work out all day. Like, matter of fact,
some people think it does.
You probably are going to be working out less than you do when you aren't that either a coach or owner or whatever it is. So, like 4 or 5 years in, I expanded the business, and that's when I was like really at a crossroad of, I got to make this thing, I got to take it to another level.
Yeah.
And that taking it to another level is going to require a deeper commitment, from me.
Yeah. That's a lot of maturity on your part, and I think it's a realization that most every coach should at least confront, and if they haven't confronted it, that's interesting.
And I think if you haven't, or maybe you have, and you've decided that you would rather the emphasis be on your own fitness. I think it's more of a hobby and not a career. The coaching aspect of it, or even the ownership side of it. It all comes down to like, what is it that you want, and I think, what I now, I probably I'm enjoying my training right now more than I have in probably at least the last like 3 to 4 years.
What have you done that do you think makes you feel like that?
Less.
Yeah. Can you tell me what less looks like?
I'm just like, so example is I'm at at Rhema like 2.5 days a week. I'm over here at Armor 2.5 days a week. And I like start hopping in classes at Rhema and being coached by our coaches.
Which are fantastic coaches.
They are. And also just being in the community. Like it's something that like I enjoy the people.
Yeah.
It's cool to like be with the people.
Yeah.
And then here I have one of my buddies that we always train together on, Dr. Lavelle. We train on Tuesdays and Thursdays together.
But Armor is also always hopping with people.
It is, and so you're always got that conversation and community of folks that that you get to connect with, and you're out.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of doing different things, and that's what makes Armor unique and fun. So.
Do you like that? So tell me, do you think that the evolution that you've seen of CrossFit, this kind of goes back to what you said of like you could have opened up a box in any place.
Yeah.
Now you don't really have that. Do you like that evolution of professionality? Like it's I don't know if that's the right word for it, but that's the word I'll use. That it's more of a professional piece as opposed to what it was. And again, I think it was professional before. I think it's just coaches look at it like, oh, this needs to be this instead of a hobby.
Yeah, I do. I think it's good.
I agree.
And I think it's evolved it's in a positive way. And even that maybe there's less than there used to be. I think that's better overall. And I mean, I'm not. I don't even mean this to be like pro CrossFit. I'm not. We're not advocating for that necessarily as much as. I just think it's been good for it to be more professionalized because it kind of has even this stigma of like it's a bad boy, type fitness. Right. And really it's a very like detailed, intricate,
incredibly comprehensive,
movement-based,
incredibly comprehensive.
Program. And so I think that part, I'm glad that.
I think it was more just like you said, the stigma wore off of what it was, where you can really see the people that were truly successful and loving it were doing kind of what you're talking about, not the showing up like, I just really want to work out in my class. And I
think what has happened over time is the cream's kind of it's risen to the top.
Which is exactly what Coach Glassman said would happen.
Yeah, it has. And it's not to say that the others don't exist. I think you probably got some places where they're still hanging around, and that's fine,
That's great.
But you also got some really, really good gyms that are doing some amazing things that are there too. And I think with any gym, no matter what it is that you're doing, I think the very successful ones at the core of what's happening is the details of it matter. Like the prescription of what you're providing to people, it matters.
That is the truth.
And the community matters, and the culture matters. Like all those things, like they really matter. And so when you start to put it together, the really, really good ones, I think you'll notice that there's something common, between them. Yeah. And it's those things.
Now, CrossFit is constantly varied functional movement performed at the utmost of intensity.
Yeah.
That was, we talked about sort of how you got to that. Now, you talked about your training today feeling better because of less, but tell me about how that constantly varied functional movement performed at the utmost of intensity. What did that turn into today? So is it exactly the same? What have you said less, so it's obviously maybe you're doing a little bit less than 6 days a week or whatever it is. Tell me where that's gone to why you feel better.
Yeah, so I've kind of like now went back to what I was doing 5 or 6 years ago, about 5 days a week.
5 days, okay.
I just adjust like intensities and loading. I think, we always as coaches, we talk to folks about scaling and really.
We have a really hard time doing that.
We do. That's the reality. And I think it's just one of those things like, making adjustments based off of like how your body's feeling or how recovery either is good or bad or.
You say you're much better at that today.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's like why now it's something that I'm enjoying it a lot more because I'm not getting discouraged over performance, metrics that I didn't lift what, I was supposed to lift today, based off of this percentage or this, metric. And
if there's a message I could have received when I was about 25 or so, it would have been that.
Well, and just in realizing that just because that didn't happen, it doesn't mean it's a bad day or it's a bad workout.
Right.
So I think just building on just the movement side of things, that, like, you're feeling that I feel better, and so at this point right now, like, I'm gonna put those wins together, and string those wins together. You know,
that's an active piece of let's take it back to, you would have felt good if you ended the workout completely crushed, rolling around on the floor, to where it's different, to where now your metric judging a good workout is what? What will you say is like, no, that was really good? Is it the same, I want to feel punished? Is it more like, I want to feel really good when I walk off of here and do my daily life?
Yeah. I don't want to. I think that's like, I'd do workouts and I would more of a flip the rest of the day. Like, I didn't want to do anything but sleep. You know, I was so depleted and ran down.
Do you feel like that's necessary to achieve the fitness level that you want? Or do you feel like that was an extra added thing that you just came up with and added in?
I think because I'm sitting there trying to just meet these metrics that I had, like, kind of formulated in my own head. You know, weren't anything that anybody else had put on to me, a coach or whoever. It was just I always felt like if today I wasn't better than yesterday on the barbell, or the time wasn't faster, you know, then I'm regressing.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
How did you no, it's not true. You're exactly right. But again, we're talking about the athlete mindset. How did you make it okay in your own mind to get there to where you can say that and know it? Like, we know it, but we tell people that.
I think it's just the journey, man, and finally arriving at the point of where, like, I train because I want to feel good. I want to be vibrant. I want to, like, be able to go out and do really anything that I, like, set my mind that I want to go to. If that's hiking, if it's mountain biking, if it's snow skiing, whatever the thing is, like, I want to be able to go do it. I don't want to feel restricted based off of my age. And so that's what that's why I train today. I really don't, like, living to 90, it doesn't really sound that great to me. Like, I don't think that I'm working out for longevity, you know?
Yeah.
I think I'm working out more for just to be vibrant and alive. So if that's like, I get 60 good years, then so be it, you know? But if it turns out to be 90, then I want to make it the best, like, 60, 90, whatever it is that I can. So I think maybe that's just, like, aging and you mature, but I also think it's one of those things, like, over the years, I've wrestled with it. And I'd go through times where I'd be like, no, I'm going to push. I'm not pushing myself hard enough.
Yeah.
And so I'd go through a little, like, phase of where I would push. But I think any time that I did that, I always felt like I was having to give up something else in order to, I might be moving the needle on this one category in my life, maybe on the fitness side. But in order to do that, I had to give up some other areas. And it could be in just, like, in the way that I felt, that I just, physically, like you talking about, man, my knees always feel like trash. Or my back is always,
one
hurting.
step away from getting really bad.
Yeah. And so, or then I'm like, I just want to lay on the couch and not go out and play,
be worth anything.
Two-hand touch with my kids because, I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, like, figuring out really at the core of it. I mean, everybody wants to look good with their shirt off.
Yeah.
Like, that's the reality. Like, I do. I want to look as good as I can, but even more so than that is I want to be able to do whatever I want to do.
So your metric has adjusted over time to the stuff you do in the gym makes you better at life outside of the gym.
Yeah.
If you were to go back 20 years and you could give yourself one just piece of advice that you would understand, what would you say? Could be a don't do this. It could be a you should do more of this. What would you adjust? And how old are you?
42.
Okay, so you're going to go back to 25. What are you going to say?
I think the one thing is really just the enjoying, like you can call it the process or in the journey, but it's really just enjoying the journey. Yeah. And I have always, like, I'm a pretty like goal oriented person. I like to set goals. I like to like work toward goals, but I've never ever arrived at a goal and been satisfied, no matter what it was. If it was, I'm not ever going to be able to make enough money. I'm never going to be able to lift enough weight. I'm never going to be able to look as good as I want to with my shirt off. But when I've reached certain goals, I've never been satisfied with the goal. Where I found the satisfaction is in the journey. It's like the lessons that I learned. It was the process. It could have been the relationships that I built along the way, and some that I can like immediately think of are like when I've set goals and I had a coach, and just the relationship that I was able to form with that coach over the process of me working toward a specific goal. That was the things that like stuck with me, you know. And it's it's really, those are the things that I take on with me. It's not that I snatched X amount of weight, last year. I don't really care too much about that anymore, but all of the little things that I learned in getting to that point, those are the things that like have molded me and shaped me today, And so I think it's don't get caught up so much in the goal, but I would say spend more time, just reflecting on the journey or the process, because I think that's where like the real growth and the experience is going to come from long term. That's going to just set you up for the next thing, Yeah. I mean, where I'm at today is so different, and even just in my mindset and the way that I think, compared to the way, that I, how I even started. Like I think of the day, even when I'm over at Rhema and I see where that gym is today, it's so different than the way that it started. Yeah. And it's all things that I'm really proud of, like I'm happy that it's at the point that it's at. Yeah. And even like in the 2.5 years, we're coming up on 3 years here, like when I look at Armor and where it was when we walked in and where it is today, like I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to do and what we've been able to accomplish, in this journey. So
yeah. That's a fantastic word. So as simple as it sounds, pay attention a lot more to today, to the details in today, as opposed to some long-term.
That's the things you're going to take with you.
Dusty, thank you for your
time.
Yeah, man.